So welcome to yet another Health and Safety Unplugged interview with subject matter experts and amazing guests who have kindly provided their time to catch up with me and to kind of pick their brains in terms of effective leadership, health and safety, and also, in this case, the amazing world of information technology and the evolving world of things like AI. I'm joined by Hilary Walton, who has been a long-term mate and who produces amazing content on digital culture ideas. Is that right?
That's right,
Oh,
yep.
Okay, I got it right. Which you can find on YouTube, LinkedIn, and all other social media platforms, Instagram. I think I even saw you on TikTok recently.
Yep, that's right. Yep, now Threads.
Yeah. How about that, right? It's a moving feast of social media.
Certainly is.
So, I mean, we've done interviews in the past over the years, and so for many people tuning in, I'm sure you'll be a familiar face. And once again, it's just amazing to have your support and to have the opportunity to catch up.
Thank you for having me. It's always so much fun speaking to you. I always enjoy our sessions together.
Oh, good,
so.
good. All right, I'm pleased to hear it. You come back for something. That's awesome. So I guess, if I'm thinking rightly, the last time we caught up, you were in a transition mode. You've now firmly embedded in your new role. So perhaps we'll just kick off there. Like, what are you doing? What's keeping you busy at the moment?
Yeah, so in a previous life, I used to be a Chief Information Security Officer, which is all about cybersecurity within one of the New Zealand telcos called Kordia. Now I'm working for Microsoft and I'm a technology strategist. So moving from cybersecurity, which is kind of like my baby, but into like a broader technology role and learning about all the things, data and AI, which is super exciting at the moment, but also like infrastructure and cloud and business apps and modern work. So it's really interesting. I'm on a steep learning curve with that, but really loving it. And I get to work with some great customers here in New Zealand and helping them think about what are their business outcomes, and then try and line that up to a technology roadmap with them. And we try and work out in terms of the challenges or opportunities there, you know, how Microsoft and technology can help in that space.
Yes.
So it's great.
That's so cool. So an ever-evolving world. So I mean, in terms of dream job, that sounds pretty amazing.
It is really cool. It is really cool. And I'm definitely really enjoying working for Microsoft. It's a really great balance of all the technology things, but then also getting the chance to do this kind of thing with you, Matt, which is that kind of public speaking and thought leadership around technology, which I super love as well. Yeah,
so cool. So I mentioned earlier around your presence on social. So I mean, you've got an amazing profile on all of the platforms. I really enjoy following it and highly recommend you find Hills. What's your tag on the socials?
It's at Hills Walton, pretty much everywhere. So at Hills Walton or Digital Culture Ideas is the other. Is the name of my show, essentially.
I love it. And there's actually a top tip in that in itself in terms of having a handle that is pretty consistent from one platform to the next, right? So it just makes it really easy to find you.
It does, yeah. It's not always easy to do right from the start either. So yeah, it's good to make sure you get into those new platforms, like, you know, like Threads has just come up, and grab that name tag just in case at some stage later down the track you want to use it. It's a good idea.
Yeah, because you never know what's going to pop, right? I think if I think back to the early days of TikTok, everyone just kind of put it off as something for the kids, but actually it's become a pretty phenomenal app.
That's right. And actually, just a hot tip on that, if you want to check whether your particular username is available across different platforms, you can go to namechecker.com. type it in, and then you can see where it is available and where it isn't, and that can help you land on your, you know, username essentially.
So the reason why I was mentioning your social side of things, social media side of things, one, I wanted to ensure that everyone knows where you are and they can find you. But secondly was I was following your journey in recent times when you headed over to the States, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, how cool is that? So this is part of your job?
Yes.
So tell us about that. What was that all about?
Yeah, look, I feel really fortunate to have headed over to the States. So basically what we did is we took about 31 CISOs, so Chief Information Security Officers or security execs, from New Zealand and Australia over to Redmond, which is near Seattle in the US, and that's the home of Microsoft. And then the idea was we wanted to take them over there for a 4-day thought leadership experience. So we wanted to talk to them about all the things that are happening in cybersecurity. And one of the main things we actually really wanted to do was make sure we didn't do any product pitches, which sounds a bit weird for Microsoft, right? But we wanted to talk to them about where things are going, the trends, particularly in AI. And then, if they want to talk to us about product later, well, that's great. But that wasn't the point of the trip. And it was really cool. So we started the week off talking to Charlie Bell, who's our Executive Vice President of Security. So imagine reports into Satya Nadella, essentially. And he kicked that off with Vasa Jaskal, and she just is one rung under him. And we were talking about what's happening in terms of AI and security. Because it's a pretty exciting time. I mean, AI is exciting anyway, but if you think about security, it's actually really exciting. And it's a bit of a game changer for us in the protective side of security. So for example, if you think about what AI can do, it can reason over information, system signals, logs, so data.
Yes.
And it can spot things that humans might miss, or at least faster than what a human might spot things. So that means that we can protect better. And if you think about it, if you can put one of those large language models, or foundational models as we're calling them now, over things like system logs, which are pretty laborious to kind of trawl through and figure out what's going on in the system, then we can discover if something has been hacked faster, where it's coming from, where it's spreading to, the timeline of events really, really accurately. And that's really key to anyone who's trying to defend against security. And I guess the converse of that is that, yes, the attackers will use that kind of information as well. And yes, they probably will try and attack the AI models themselves. But what we really have now is this real ally in AI for security professionals. It's going to be able to scale a lot faster in terms of those tier 1 and tier 2 security people who are working on the front line, really responding to the alerts coming through. It's going to be able to make them even more potent and be able to act quicker.
Cool.
So that's really exciting, because it also means it might bring a new breed or a new type of skill set to that front line.
Just what I was thinking.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Which means it's going to get more people into cybersecurity, which is what we want, because we haven't got enough people to fill the skills gaps that we do have. Yeah,
so that hits home. So in the health and safety space, similar situation, right? So we've got an estimated 2,000 people, practitioner shortfall
we've got the same
in New Zealand, right?
cyber.
Isn't that crazy?
It's not cool.
No, it's nuts. And so I think that's one of the key takeaways from a lot of the content you've been putting out, is that right now there's this huge opportunity for people to walk into these industries that perhaps hadn't really been considered before.
Yep, which is really exciting from a diversity perspective.
Yes.
I mean, we'll still need these really experienced people with 10, 20 years experience of cybersecurity, but it means that there'll just be more people who'll be able to get a foot in the door earlier.
Yeah, and I think this is key, right? So what struck me as I was, because you did an amazing job at interviewing many of the experts and the seasoned professionals within the Microsoft family, which is freely available on your YouTube channel. So I strongly encourage people to go and check that out, because the content's amazing.
Find out what's hot.
Yeah, so cool, right? But it struck me that despite all of the technological advancements, the fact that we're so used to using Teams calls, conference calls, that Microsoft still saw it fit and necessary to get people together halfway across the other side of the world, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's so true. And I think part of the reason there is we were setting it up as not just thought leadership, which we could have delivered virtually, but it was a whole experience. So it was a chance to hear and interact with some of the more senior Microsoft security people in the company and ask them questions in real time.
Yes.
But there was also a lot which was around the people themselves getting in together. So as an ex-Chief Information Security Officer, this may sound weird, but we don't really often get a chance to get together in rooms. There are conferences that we might attend, but we're all pretty time poor. And certainly you might go to the conference, listen to some presentations, and then you kind of go back out to finish the day job that you've missed because you've been attending the conference.
Yes.
So if you think about this kind of experience where you're taking people out of their roles, taking them overseas, I mean, that's always a bonus, obviously, I guess, if people get to travel. But they're having those networking conversations, not just in the conference themselves, but as they're being bussed around the Microsoft campus, as they're going out for dinner or having breakfast. And there's nothing like that shared experience of, oh, you're suffering from that too, or you've got that challenge, or hey, have you thought about doing this? like that networking piece is, I think, one of the main things that people got out of the whole trip as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, and there's still a place for in person. It's always
Yes.
isn't it? Not or.
Yeah, that's totally right. And I think that's probably the kind of the underlining point is that despite all of these advancements, it's the human interaction that is still key to the success of all of this stuff that's coming available, right?
Yep,
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah, so interesting. So, in terms of your experience over there, what were some of the highlights? What were some of the things that kind of stick with you?
Well, one thing that did struck me and that kind of jumped out was, so one thing was around the stacking effect we're seeing in this AI space in relation to security. So first of all, the fact that AI is here and now and able to be kind of consumed by more people rather than just a select group of technical people. It's, you know, available for everyone. So there's that. Yeah. The second stacking force that we're seeing is that in terms of threat intelligence, particularly from the Microsoft perspective, like we gather a lot of information across our platform and we're able to use that for good. You know, they're digesting some crazy amount of signals per day and you know, stopping so many amounts of threats, and that provides a certain lot of what we call threat intelligence that we can then feed back into our products, feed back into our platform. Right. So that, if you think about where Microsoft is, it's, I mean, across a lot of different organizations. Yes. So that's the other really kind of power for good, if you like. And then the third part here is the computing power that's possible now. Yeah. I mean, without the computing power, you can't really process the large language models, if that makes sense. Yep. And Microsoft, like they've committed to building at least 50 to 100 data centers annually for the next wee while, and they're expanding into about 10 different countries. One of those being New Zealand, which is coming live next year. Amazing. So that's pretty amazing, but it's those three things, the AI is here, the threat intelligence capability, and then also the computing power, which means it's exciting in terms of defending against cyber criminals. Yeah, and that New Zealand's playing a key role in that. That's so cool. So, okay, so let's delve into the data centers. So in layman's terms, what would that actually even look like here in New Zealand? So essentially it means like literally building a data center. So we're building that up in the North Island. And it means that we would have the computing power here in New Zealand. I mean, Microsoft's data centers, they're set up so that they're one big network, if that makes sense. So the fact that that's in New Zealand is only important from the fact that in New Zealand we have particular cultural sensitivities, and some people and organisations really like our data to be in New Zealand. We feel like we want to have it close to home, but actually Microsoft is a kind of global network of data centres. So these data centres just need to be in all different places so that it spans different regions, has different resiliency, the fact it's in different countries, that kind of thing. If you think of that stat, it's almost like three data centers, being built three data centers a month kind of coming online. It's pretty amazing. And we need it for the AI capability that everyone's trying to build within the organisation. And that's the thing, right? Is it's a constantly evolving, learning thing. And it's just trying to keep one step ahead of the curve as it develops. The other thing that I'm excited about is I often think back to the board reports and the never-ending typey and like trying to find data from several different Excel spreadsheets and trying to figure it out and pivot table this and that. I'm really excited for the day where I can throw, and actually I think it's here now, being able to throw the data wherever it's come from into a pot and then go, can you please tell me some of the interesting findings from this? Or can you build me an executive dashboard to monitor health and safety performance in this company, and you're just using language to do it. And that really thrills me, right? Because I know for some it'd be like, oh, doesn't that mean my job's gone? No, it means that you can now be even more confident in the data that you're speaking to, right? And get involved in those high level conversations, those strategic conversations that health and safety people really enjoy, rather than, well, unless you really enjoy spreadsheets and the administrative side, but do you know what I mean? It changes the nature of the work. Yes, and that's such an important point, right? So this is something I've been banging on about for years, and why I continue to speak to amazing people like yourself. I've just recently spoken to Michael Philpott, who's a coach and public speaking mentor,
And it's those skills, the essential skills of being able to deliver a message to the intended audience, right? So you can have all the data in the world, but if you aren't able to communicate that in a way that affects change, that's something that I think people are really going to have to start to get their heads around.
Yep, for sure.
So cool. That's fascinating. It's a moving feast. So I'm just trying to think about some of the questions, because there's so many questions I have for you. It comes back to, and I'm still having these conversations around the table, dinner table, even with members of my family, around the arrival of AI. Many people are putting it into the bucket of the flash in the pan. Now, I know you and I have got particular thoughts around the things such as NFTs and cryptocurrencies, which were put into the bucket of flash in the pan.
Yeah.
You know, people are throwing their good money into something that's not going to be around in a few months. Time will tell. But with AI, it's very apparent that it's not going away anytime soon. You know, and I think for those types of conversations, what are your thoughts around? Well, are people unnecessarily putting the blinkers on? And if they are, what are some of the potential risks for having that type of mindset around the evolving world?
Yeah, I think for some people, they still put technology in the bucket of that's for technology people, that's for IT people, and don't really appreciate the fact that they're already using so much technology in their day-to-day lives that they could start to call themselves technology people as well. You know, AI is already in, you know, for example, movie streaming platforms, and it's recommending us, you know, the next movie to watch and that kind of thing. We're already using it in things like mapping technology and wayfinding. Like it's already there, and we're already using it. But I think there's kind of this mindset that technology is for technology people and not kind of everyone, which is a real shame. But I think people should start to think of, because there's different variations of how involved you can get with AI if you really wanted to. You know, it could be something really simple like starting to play with video creation or content creation, or maybe just summarizing things for yourself so you can learn and read articles a bit quicker. It could be as simple as that. Or it could be more advanced. So as you've already pointed out, like some of the health and safety things are pretty amazing. Like maybe you could look at like risk analysis and prediction. You know, risk has always been such an art form as well as science. But if you can get, you know, a bit more of a guide to how risks are, I'm not going to say, right, is it propensiting or, you know, the direction they're going, and that's super helpful for health and safety professionals. Or, you know, it could be like trying to track a near miss, you know, in a warehouse or a plant kind of situation before it happens. And, you know, there's so many advanced use cases, yes, which are really exciting, but people can just start now just by playing around with it. So my two things to be just to start, if you like, would, people often do a lot of things on their phone rather than their computers. So maybe just download onto your phone a couple of key apps. So one of those would be OpenAI, as in ChatGPT that people have heard about, and you know, the publicly available free version. So chat.openai.com. So get that on your phone as an app. But be aware that is the model has only learnt up to 2021, so you've got to be a bit wary of that, but it still gives you some pretty amazing, it's a pretty amazing playground to learn and find information. The second one I reckon you should play with is actually Bing, which is Microsoft's search engine, and you're like, yeah, Hills is always going to say that, but it is free, and it is also using ChatGPT-4, which is the most advanced AI model that we have, and it's searching the internet, so it's giving you up-to-date information from what's on the internet, if that makes sense. So that's really good if you're looking for information that's very now and current. And I think playing with those is a really good place to start. Definitely lean into it, because once you start playing with it, then you start going, oh, and you can learn this and this, and oh, I can do that, and you know, it helps. So anyone that I meet that hasn't played with ChatGPT, I download those two apps on their phone. Like, hey, oh, you haven't done it? Let's do that now.
Oh,
it's
how
not
cool is
hard.
that? Yeah.
You know, each one teach one. That's kind of how I roll.
Oh, I love
that
it.
one.
That's a really clear call to action. So those people that are tuning into this right now, is to perhaps have that confidence to have those conversations and to help educate and get people around, you know, their heads around this changing space. Because even now, like I didn't actually realise that Bing was aligned to ChatGPT-4. That's
Yeah.
news to me. That's amazing.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
And you know, there is a lot going on in this space, and I think if we're sort of thinking out towards the future, you know, you want to make sure that any AI you're using is built responsibly.
Yes.
And there are responsible AI principles that you know any good company worth their salt should be building into their AI, as Microsoft are. But you know, things like making sure a AI model is explainable, so that you can understand the thinking behind an AI model and how it came to the answer it did. Also needs to be built in a way that helps combat things like bias. Interestingly though, often it can be the question that's asked that is bias and not actually the model itself, which is kind of interesting. So there's a few kind of ways that you can use AI, and if you're learning how to use it, then you're kind of learning the tactics that go along with that to help you get the best outcome.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this because I get the sense of what you're alluding to is having a framework or a structure within the organisation. So something that reflects the organisation's scope, strategy, vision, external, internal factors that it needs to take on board, and then placing the AI possibilities or the framework into that. So from a health and safety point of view, I'm kind of badly alluding to ISO standards. So you know, 45001, for example, for the health and safety side of space, side of things, we've got environmental quality standards, risk management standards. It's just a matter of time there'll be an AI standard.
There is, and in fact we're already working with ISO and NIST, which is kind of like a cybersecurity standard, with those global regulatory and standards groups to develop those, because we want to make sure that we're doing it in the best way. So yeah, and I know that with your background around kind of management systems, and you'll obviously talk a lot about safety, health and safety management systems, but there's sort of an an AI management system that you need to be thinking about as well, that has at its highest pinnacle things like, you know, regulatory requirements and, you know, overall policy and procedures, and then there's kind of training the people and all the procedures that sit, you know, under that kind of, you know, policy procedure triangle that, you know, you may or may not have heard about. Fun stuff. But yeah, so it needs to be put into an organisation's management system in the same way, with the right amount of governance around those things.
See, I actually think a lot of people possibly haven't taken it to that next step to actually think that through. For me, I find it absolutely fascinating, and it's an inevitable, really. But it
is really hard for organisations to think it through, so I totally empathise with them, which is why I think it's really important to try and keep up with what is coming down from a regulatory perspective. So in June this year, the EU actually proposed their first kind of IA Act, sorry, I'm saying that right, AI Act, so I'm getting it around the wrong way. So what the type of things that are coming through that particular act are things like being able to categorise an AI model into high risk, medium risk, low risk, negligible risk. Once you've done that, making sure there's a database that exists and you know, for the high risk models, that anyone who doesn't, you know, do the right mitigations around high risk models, they're proposing fines for those people up to about 30 million or 6% of their global profits. And also things like making sure that there are those AI examples that are just completely steered clear of. So things like subliminal manipulation is in the Act, and also exploitation of children and mentally disabled, like things that you would obviously go, oh yeah, sure. But actually that's where regulation can kind of help, because it really nuts through, you know, how to think about AI and how to work with AI, and this use case, is it high risk, low risk, medium risk? Has it got personal information in it? Because once you do that categorisation, then as a good risk professional, you can start working to mitigate the risks, or decide we could do it, but should we? I think that's always a really important question to ask. And particularly even for health and safety people thinking about working with artificial intelligence. I could do this, like I could monitor all the employees' moves everywhere, even into the bathroom. But should I? Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that's it just changes the conversation when you go, should we?
It's the whole piece, it's the implementation and the intent around the implementation of stuff. So I saw a user case, I won't mention the name of the company because it's out of my mind now anyway, but I saw an example where an organization tagged in AI to their CCTV network. And so they were basically monitoring all of their workers' behavior 24/7, and were pinging individuals for non-compliance, things like not wearing high-vis vests and all that kind of stuff. So the user case suggested that the workers were thrilled to have this new technology in their workplace. And
this was protecting them.
Yeah, and this was demonstrated by the fact that the number of non-compliances dramatically dropped. So the outcome of that was desirable, but I do wonder whether everyone was so thrilled to have that technology in there, and whether that could have potentially undermined the overall workplace well-being.
And with any massive, with any change like that, that's where the staff engagement becomes super important, doesn't it? Because sometimes it is worthwhile, but then other times, it's not. But engaging staff throughout is key. Actually, a really specific health and safety use case was done by Fonterra. So they have created some VR training, and it uses AI as well. And because basically they have a lot of different sites, and they can train people on the hazard and risks of a particular site, which might be a really dangerous site, before even people end up going there. So there's some really awesome, ways that it's been used in a health and safety perspective as well, just to kind of balance that out.
Oh no, it's so cool. Like again, like you know me, I'm really excited by the whole prospect of this, and it's also extremely heartening to see regulators getting together and getting on with this so quickly. Like traditionally when we think about the time it takes to create and then pass an act, it generally takes years. But it seems to be that the many countries, many governments are actually front-footing this and just getting on with it, which is great.
Things really got quick around COVID, and they sort of haven't stopped from a regulation perspective, and then also a technology perspective as well. Just want to come back to, I was talking about using ChatGPT and then also Bing. Just a bit of a caveat around that in terms of your audience, in terms of the data they put into those tools.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Thank you.
You want to make sure any sensitive IP, sensitive information, customer information, personal information, you don't put into those publicly available versions of the tools, because it will help teach the model. So the data basically becomes the models, if that makes sense.
It's public knowledge all of a sudden.
And when as a health and safety professional, if you're getting into that next round where you're beyond playing in the playground of ChatGPT and Bing, and you want to go more enterprise, and you recognise that actually if I'm creating these board reports or using this sensitive personal information from health and safety incidents, that's when you want to go up to the enterprise level of tools available. So
cool. Now this is, I really wanted to explore this because again, front of mind is like, it's cool to play with these tools, but if we are now putting in really sensitive information at that level, there is no safeguard, right? It's the public realm. I don't think people realise that, and there's been numerous organisations that have been caught out by that. There was even a worst case scenario of a lawyer in the States who was caught during a trial, tabled several cases as part of his defence. Only to find out that those several cases were non-existent. They had been
completely
made up.
Fictitious.
The source was ChatGPT, and ChatGPT was very helpful.
Made it up.
It reminds me. I'll be honest, put my hand up. I was almost caught out myself. I asked ChatGPT to give me some interesting stats around the uptake of ISO 45001 in New Zealand, and it told me that 80% of businesses in New Zealand had achieved or were striving for certification. I was just like, that's a really interesting stat. And I started writing it out, and then I was like, hold on, I need to go back and double check the source. So I asked the ChatGPT, well, can you tell me your source? And then it went into full-blown apology mode. It was just like, well, you asked me for some interesting stats, and that's what I provided. It was like, whoa, crazy,
interesting.
Crazy,
and actually sometimes that's when Bing can be a little bit better, because you also get links to the source material, so you can kind of do that reference check or fact checked.
Yes.
Check yourself.
Cool, that's a good tip. But then the next step up.
Yeah,
Yes.
so I mean, there are lots of different companies who work
Yes.
in the space. Microsoft is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that we have is we call it the Microsoft Azure Open AI service.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, it's just part of the Microsoft platform that you can use, and you can get it. So what happens then is you set it up and you get it to search the data that you have within your Office 365 or Microsoft 365 tenant, and it stays within that protected walled garden, doesn't go anywhere else, doesn't train the model. So that's a safer way to set up using that. Now you will have to apply to use that particular service, because we gate it, because we don't just want anyone using the AI model for whatever reason they want. We want to make sure there's no nefarious applications of the AI, but that's when you start to get into the enterprise level stuff. It's free to apply for. Obviously, there might be some charges as you're using the particular model, but it means you can focus it in on your particular data set, be it a set of policies or be it some reports or some spreadsheets, and it all stays within.
Yeah, so that's really cool. Attention project management and construction business owners and health and safety professionals. Are you seeking expert guidance to streamline your health and safety processes? Look no further than Advanced Safety, New Zealand's leading health and safety consultancy. Our team specialises in comprehensive capability assessments, tailored systems, exceptional training and ongoing support. We're here to simplify your journey, ensuring you achieve demonstrable legal compliance efficiently. And here's the best part. With Advanced Safety, you're guaranteed results. We commit to achieving compliance within 180 days or less, providing you with peace of mind and saving you valuable time and resources. Say farewell to intricate procedures and welcome simplicity. Our experts excel at simplifying health and safety, empowering you to focus on your core business operations. To explore our franchise opportunities for health and safety professionals and our comprehensive suite of solutions for construction and project management companies, visit advancedsafety.co.nz today. Advanced Safety, simplifying health and safety for New Zealand businesses. You're probably getting sick of being asked this question. I think it was actually thanks to you and your awesome the WhatsApp community. So yeah, plug that by all means. What Matt's referring to is I have this digital culture ideas news hub.
So it's kind of like a technology tech service. And so on a daily basis, I post out between 1 and 3 articles on interesting news articles I'm seeing that relate to the technology and technology and the internet and the impact it's having on our lives and how we communicate and make decisions. There's a lot of AI articles going down there at the moment because it is so hot. But yeah, it's something I just really enjoy doing. If I'm reading something, I just quite like then sharing it to other people as well.
It's a really invaluable resource, so I definitely recommend checking it out. So what's really nice is you're actually filtering through all of the noise and just giving the content that's actually really relevant. So
yeah, because I try and provide that little blurb around what it actually kind of means. And can I just plug Matt's one as well? Because as a director myself, I find it really useful from a governance and directorship perspective to know what the hot or the current health and safety news flashes are, or incidents that have happened, and particularly for your thoughts around the topic as well. That just really helps me in my governance career, particularly. So thank you.
Oh well, thanks. I clearly stole the idea from you, so I'm passing the ball back. But no, thank you. Yeah, so that's NZHSP News Hub. So I even stole my title from your group as well. But yeah, it really was inspired from the resource that you've made available and dedicate your time to. So thank you. It's been brilliant. It was one of the things that put me onto Microsoft Copilot. So I watched the full kind of version of their behind-the-scenes presentation, or the big announcement that Copilot was on the horizon. So for me, that was the first time I grasped the full power or potential of what AI can do within the Microsoft suite, right? So I'm a user of Microsoft. My team will use Microsoft, and so watching that kind of blew my mind a little bit, actually. it made me realize that a lot of the tedious day-to-day stuff that we do, and what I feel like I'm forever changing and amending and fixing, because there's always to be broken stuff, is going to be taken care of. So I guess the question I was going to ask, and I'm sure you're getting asked this heaps, is there a release date when that's actually going to become publicly available?
Yeah, the Copilot piece is really exciting, and there's different types of Copilots.
Okay.
So the Microsoft 365 one, which is the one you're referring to, around our productivity suite, it will be coming soon, like within the next 12 months. Let's put it that way. Could be sooner, but it's. Yeah, I think the power of that, and particularly if you look at some of the research around productivity, which we'll definitely be measuring over the next 12 months as we bring people into previews, but it's, you can increase productivity by anywhere between 20 and 40%.
Amazing.
And I'm not even sure what that means,
that's
like
nuts.
in terms of how much more I'm going to be able to get done, but I know it's going to be really impactful. But the big thing around Copilot, which is super interesting, is the technology is all, very sophisticated, obviously built by our product development teams, who've done an amazing job, but in terms of implementing it into organisations, it's actually the people bit, which is going to be the really interesting part, because I'm obviously used to be a psychologist, and actually getting people to change their work habits, injecting it into their workflows, like that's going to be the bit that I think organisations and people need to get their head around. How do I use this AI in a way that's I'm using it super effectively so that I can reach those productivity levels? So again, it comes back to the whole management of change, right? And how to communicate that and deliver that. So much to think through, because you're right. I can just imagine if that's just like any other tool, if it's just thrown willy-nilly at the company, most people are going to look at it and then forget about it and just carry on and not see its full potential. Yes.
That's so interesting. I mean, for me, like, just as a bit of a highlight, one of the things that really got my imagination going whilst watching that presentation was around the meetings. So it's like having a virtual assistant sitting in with any of your Teams meetings, taking minutes, identifying the themes, identifying the actions that have been discussed, who's agreed to taking those actions, or if no one has, it might suggest who's best suited to take that action. And then with a couple of clicks of a mouse, those actions are then sent out and tracked until completion, and it's just like, oh my gosh, that's going to save so much time.
It's really cool, and I think you sort of highlighted the key thing there. It's an assistant. So there's a reason it's called Copilot and not Pilot, because you're always sitting beside it, you're always in control. But an amazing assistant to help you out.
So I'm definitely getting the picture that, well, one, and I certainly don't sit in this camp anyway, but there is this whole sense of everyone's jobs are going to get taken, and it's, the sky's falling. We're not there, and I don't think we're actually going to get to that point. And one of the things that's quite heartening is the message that I'm picking up from yourself is that there's a whole heap of custodial actions taking place in the background, right? Heaps of deep thinking going on around, okay, how do we implement this in a way in which assists and supports what we're actually striving to achieve here, right? Absolutely. Like,
we see this as a way to kind of augment. That's probably not the right word. It definitely is like that assistant to walk beside you. It's not making final decisions, but it is definitely looking at some of that more difficult or time-consuming things to help you out. And if you think of some of the benefits, this is really going to help people, all sorts of people, not just super intelligent people, doing their roles, but all sorts of people. It's going to open up accessibility for people, even just in a way that, remember when texts came to the point where you could talk your text into, the text thing, and that was amazing for people with dyslexia, or had trouble kind of typing out text. This is going to be amazing for people with other kind of learning difficulties as well, to really become everything that they want to be. So there's lots of cool use cases that need to be focused on as well.
I totally agree. Like it's opening doors, for those who otherwise may not have been able to walk through those doors. It's also like an environmental side of the thing as well, right? So I mean, we are just horrifically inefficient and wasteful in pretty much everything we do. This is just going to highlight all of those inefficiencies and allow us to streamline their supply chain. You know, just as a small example. You know, that's, to me, again, super exciting.
Sustainability, because you did just mention that.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. Before I was talking about all the computing power that's going to be required to drive these AI models, and isn't that exciting?
Yeah.
But also that's not good for the environment. It's really interesting. I was reading recently that Microsoft has signed an agreement with a energy fusion company. So basically they're looking at how they can develop clean energy. And so in 5 years' time, they've partnered with this company and they're going to develop a commercial grade fusion energy plant.
Wow, okay.
And they've signed up to doing this, even though it's not quite possible at the moment to do it in that commercial way. I mean, there's little bits of that being done around the side, but Microsoft have committed to make sure that, you know, they can help the world with clean energy as well. And they have some really lofty sustainability goals that they want to reach also. But I think it's not just the AI, right? It's actually thinking about all of that and what that means to society and the world, which is really important.
Yeah, and that in itself is a living example of the critical thinking element that only humans can bring to the table, right? Yeah, that's so fascinating. It's so exciting as well, especially putting your chips into something that at the moment in theory isn't possible, but with what we've got available.
In that. Yeah,
it's so
cool.
It's
important.
Yeah, that's really interesting. All right, so bringing it back to your more than average health and safety practitioner, what would be some of what would be the advice you'd give to them, perhaps new to or wanting to further their knowledge around AI and its use? Where would we want to start?
Well, the cool thing is there are lots of places to start. So there's lots of companies that are starting to develop free resources in that space. And Microsoft is one of them, of course. Sorry, I am Microsoft, but there are other companies building lots of resources in this space. But Microsoft in particular, they have invested in like a learning pathway that can now be found on LinkedIn. So that people can start to understand what it means and for their career and their job. So the course, and I do have the name of it here, it talks about, so it's kind of your career pathway and artificial intelligence. And if you go in there, there's a number of different modules, like what is, generative AI?
I think that's the one I did, yes.
How can I use it to research online? Because that's a really interesting thing. It's not just about generating content, but helping you learn as a really patient explainer. There's another one there around responsible AI and ethics as well. But if you start kind of those learning resources, then that can get you down the road to a whole bunch of other resources. And they're all coming out free at the moment because we just desperately need to upskill people in this new amazing technology.
Yes, and so a couple of things there, which is epic. So one, I've done one of the intro courses that was available on LinkedIn, so I highly recommend it. It's a fantastic course. I'm looking forward to doing the other courses that are freely accessible there. I hadn't actually put two and two together. I didn't realize Microsoft owned LinkedIn, and that's how it all kind of came about. Awesome. So again, definitely giving it a plug. And I guess it comes back to that whole, this is an emerging industry, a brand new space. And so the opportunities are vast. And I think right now is a prime opportunity to just jump in with both feet.
Absolutely. Lean into it because it'll help you. But also it's worth 20 minutes of research.
Yes. I will. There is a bit of a caveat or a bit of a disclaimer here where I've seen examples of this where unfortunately it's been used to not the best of its intentions. So I came across a worksite inspection report from a consultancy. Never heard of them before, couldn't track the owners, that just don't exist as far as I can tell. But they had produced a worksite inspection report for one of their clients, and the content of the report, lots of photos taken from this worksite, and it looked like they'd put the photos maybe through Bing or maybe Bard, and got the AI tool to describe what was in the picture. And so they copied and pasted the description into the report. So it tells you nothing about the implications of what this photo is trying to tell the reader. It's just telling the reader, here is a picture of a ladder. A ladder is commonly used for, sometimes people fall off ladders. And it's like, oh my gosh, and someone was charged for this, thinking that they were covering their their risks and vulnerabilities. And it's like, that's not how to use AI.
No, that is disappointing to hear, but I bet that's happening more often than you think.
Yeah.
And for me, it's about, with any new tool, like, don't be silly with it, like cutting and pasting and neglecting to input your own thoughts, context, knowledge. It's just a missed opportunity. It's a great first draft. It's good for a bit of source of inspiration. Can help teach you things as well. But there's nothing like your own intelligence applied across something as well. You've got to use your own brain and stay in that that control seat. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So a couple. Hopefully you'll give me the nod of approval. So a couple of user cases that I've done myself personally is one. The structure of presentations. So I've asked it for a bit of a rundown as to what a good sequence of slides would look like and what some of the bullet points in those slides might want to be.
Yeah.
So it's then given me the ability to then critically consider that and then go off and do my own research and add to it and get the right kind of
absolutely. Yeah, that's a great use case. Yeah, and I've certainly done that before as well. Even in thinking about, because I have a YouTube and podcast and thing as well, what questions should I ask my guests? But at the end of the day, you've still got to go, but hold on, that doesn't actually suit the audience or the particular guest that I am actually asking questions to.
Yep.
So use it intelligently.
Yes, and people can tell. I agree. I don't know about you, but I'm starting to see lots of examples of this. LinkedIn's a good example of posts and content that's been purely generated through AI, really heavily handed with emojis, and then text itself just doesn't quite make sense. It's a little bit clunky. And it's like, you're just copying and pasting that straight out of ChatGPT. That's really lazy, and people can see it. So stop it.
Absolutely.
So credibility. It's not doing yourself any service really. So use it by all means, but remember you've still got to refine it and work it and make it your own.
Yeah. I agree.
Oh, awesome. I'm pleased to hear that you agree.
And you're definitely using it right for inspiration. Yeah.
That's great news. We've mentioned a couple of times now around the fact that people still sit very much at the center of the evolution of AI and how this is, basically it's a revolution really, and it's happening in our lifetimes. Amazing. So how do we maintain that? I mean, we've talked about introducing management frameworks.
Yeah.
We've talked about policy. We've talked about legislation. Is there anything else from your experience that will help those that are tuning in to keep that front of mind?
It's really interesting because for me, AI is all about people, and maybe it's the way that my work, Microsoft has framed it up around a co-pilot, so it's someone sitting next to you. But I've always thought of it as being all about people, and maybe that's from my experience of technology is technology, but it's always the people who have to implement it and take it up, and it's the attitude of the people, and and how they incorporate it into their kind of work life. So I do think that AI is about people.
Yep.
And again, it's just those kind of things we talked about, ensuring that it's augmenting that human decision making rather than replacing it, making sure that you're doing it responsibly so that it doesn't harm others. I just think that maybe that question we talked about earlier, and it's not, can we just do this? It's should we? And because at the end of the day, it does impact outcomes for people at the end of the day.
Right, yeah, it's such a good point. And I think what underscores that is the point, and the fact that you raised this already, is that you are a qualified psychologist, not practicing.
Not practicing at the moment, no.
However, talk about a superpower to have at this time in this age where there is this really interesting interface between tech and people. And being able to navigate that and to be able to communicate that to audiences is clearly something that's going to be highly in demand, and hence why you're in the role that you're in. So again, like for the audience, would you recommend any direction or any courses or any upskilling opportunities in that space to help them to address the boards or to help senior executives make decisions?
I think it is, so there are definitely learning pathways you can go on to understand more about AI. I think, there are always, you know, different flavors of that AI conversation that you can look out for as well around, you know, how you might think about executives and boards, you know, because for them it's going to be all about IP leakage, it's going to be about security, privacy, you know, legislation, and seeing how that impacts their business model. I think just sort of staying close to some of the information that's coming out around that as it's sort of evolving will help. I don't have anything specific at the moment, but there certainly is a lot of conversation in that space.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And again, so it's a moving feast, right? It's just so much going on at the moment. It's hard to really kind of ring fence it. And that's probably the point, is that we need to kind of embrace this and not just assume that it's a flash in the pan or it's going to go away.
Yeah, it's not going anywhere. It's actually here and now. It's like yesterday.
Yeah, that's actually been some of my learnings too, right? So I've gone away and done a little bit of research. It's like, oh, actually, artificial intelligence isn't that new. And as you mentioned earlier on, things like predictive text and, you know, all that kind of good stuff. It's all part of that journey to where we are right now.
Yeah.
Very cool. I think like kind of run out of questions, but I want to carry on talking. It's such a cool space. So I mean, I guess you're in quite a unique space, and I appreciate the fact that you can only talk to so much without kind of crossing lines. But is there anything that's emerging that you're not seeing much focus on that's kind of exciting you or has kind of grabbed your interest?
It's really interesting. I've been having some conversations recently with people around, they've sort of been saying, oh, the discourse around AI is changing at the moment, which is really interesting. I was like, oh, kind of what is changing? And they're like, well, you know, it first started off and it was really exciting and it was like, wow. And then now everyone's slightly getting a little bit complacent, bit bored around that particular storyline. I'm like, are they? Because we've only just scratched the surface of this thing. Yeah. So I find that really interesting, and I wonder if that trend will continue, or if it was just kind of the couple of people that I'm speaking to. But I think, you know, for organisations in general, they can't deny the impact this will have on how they do their work, in terms of productivity and optimisation, yes, but even the services they have, because AI is that general purpose technology. It touches not just the technology department, but HR, it touches sales, it touches marketing, it touches like every department, if you like, in a business can be transformed using AI. Like I'm just excited to see what November's going to be like, because things are changing that fast.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I can't even predict what's going to be coming through in November, and that's only a few months away.
Yeah, that's so interesting to hear. Actually, I think that's possibly a really critical point, right? Is that I actually agree. I think there is a general complacency that's creeped in. Everyone's had a play with ChatGPT. Yeah. Most people have just put in a couple of prompts and gone, oh yeah, that's all right, and then walked away. And now it's kind of like, oh, yesterday's news. And I think there is a real danger of businesses of all shapes and sizes are possibly sleepwalking into a bit of a kind of mess. Because
there are some people who aren't sleepwalking and they're actively using it, and they're going to be coming up with amazing things that we just go, wow, and then kind of everyone has to try and, you know, keep up.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking about, forgive me, I've forgotten the name of your guest interview, but it was a woman in the HR space.
Olivia Diet, working in the HR space,
Yeah, thank you. Recommend. I'll put a link in the video. Go and check it out. So from the HR space, I mean, that's just, you know, it's a drop in the ocean in terms of, as you said, you know, AI is going to impact every department and every facet within any organisation. It's not going anywhere, right?
No.
And so now, whilst there is a bit of a lull, perhaps potentially, you're probably not feeling it quite so much as others. Now is the chance to kind of grab it with both hands and to think hard about, okay, how is this going to impact our organisation? Perhaps look at some of the publications from the likes of the EU. I know Microsoft have released some white papers and some policy statements around good practice.
We've got a load of information up on our websites, and even around kind of customer stories and things like that, which is starting to come through, which can give you some inspiration. That's
awesome, thank you. I'll definitely be tackling into that as well, because yes, we're in the health and safety space, but let's face it, we're also in the policy, also in the governance, we're also in helping organisations make informed decisions. So part of our role is to immerse ourselves in these new spaces, right? And even if you're in the not-for-profit sector, or if you're a business which is doing social good, there's actually money available to help in those spaces as well.
I know Microsoft has a grant that it's running at the moment. I think the applications for that sort of close mid-August. But I think there'll always be organisations like Microsoft and everyone else who want to support social good, not-for-profits. So keep an eye out for those because they may help your businesses as well.
Amazing, thank you. One thing that's just kind of sprung to mind, I saw a bit of a debate, again it was online, among several risk and health and safety practitioners, and the discussion was around whether we should have AI as a single risk that we should be entering onto our risk register, or whether AI should be considered as a risk that filters across a whole organisation, and there's different kind of levels of risk associated depending on where it's found within the organisation. Have you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I do, because it's also been a conundrum that I've had in the cybersecurity side.
Yes.
Like, is that cybersecurity one risk on the risk register, or is it a number of risks, or does it fit into completely different risk categories, like, you know, data leakage or system availability, you know, because those are the end kind of outcomes of a cyber attack. And I do think AI is quite similar. I think I think it should be in a couple of places. It should definitely be on your strategic risk register right now, as you're thinking about what does this mean for our organisation, what does this mean for our customers, how are we going to manage it, how are we going to implement it safely. So there's kind of that. And then I think in terms of like the bigger risk register, it's what makes sense for your organisation. You know, there are probably particular AI risks which are more relevant to particular organisations, depending on whether they have websites and are selling things on a website versus, you know, manufacturing in a plant. So pick out the relevant AI risks that matter to you, and close them off as well. And if they need to be a number of separate risks so that you can manage and mitigate them in the right way, fine. If you can bundle them together and do it that way, fine. But it's like with anything risk management, you do what makes sense. It's that same thing. It's not A or B, it's and whatever makes sense for your organisation. Just don't overcomplicate it, but make sure you are thinking about it.
Yeah, and that comes from a ton of experience, right? It's such a great answer, because a couple of things. One, I really love the fact that it's a doing response, right? It's like you can't sit back and just pretend this isn't happening. But when you do something, make sure that it is specific to your requirements and to your framework, right? There's no point bolting in something that's just completely doesn't speak your language, because no one's going to use it and it's probably going to steer you in the wrong direction. Yeah, that's so cool. Thank you. And what was the other thing? Oh, and also around your point around the strategy piece, that it has to be at the core of that. Regardless of shape or size. Like, I actually found myself about a month ago, I sat down with Bridget, who's my franchisee success manager, general manager. We did a SWOT analysis of what AI meant for our business, you know, which I can't imagine there's very many companies out there that have got, you know, a small number of employees and have got some franchisees around the place who are sitting down having these conversations. In my mind, you'd be crazy not to be having those kind of conversations right now, because there's so many opportunities, you know.
Absolutely, and you know, all depending on the size of your business as well. You may get into a situation where AI is popping up in lots of different pockets. So you may want to have like a steering committee, which is like developing the policy and the guardrails for AI in your business. You know, what are the security aspects? What are the privacy aspects? What are the health and safety aspects even? And they might be responsible for thinking about which use cases you build out first. Maybe starting with some low risk ones first before getting into using personal information. But you know, there's different frameworks for different businesses. I think that need to be considered, but should be considered. Yeah, brilliant, love it. So, kind of just doing a brief summary here, right? So, right now is the time to be talking strategically and looking at company policies, processes, and expectations around the use of AI. Perhaps identifying the risks of what AI, you know, both opportunities and threats to the organisation, and categorising those based on your own existing risk frameworks. Perhaps being aware of the international position on this, so the EU's legislation that's in draft format still. I think it's proposed. Okay. Awesome. But then also, as well as that, another piece is staff education. So there should be conversations around what it means for people happening in businesses now.
Yep.
Probably an e-learning module is kind of what you need really,
Yep.
but someone explaining to staff what AI is, you know, what the impacts are, the benefits, all that kind of stuff, but then also what it is and what it isn't,
Yep.
and how to use it sensibly. Like, don't put company, you know, information into the publicly available
Yes.
versions of this thing. You know, letting staff know that it might hallucinate, like it might come up with the wrong information because
Yep.
it's just forgotten what the topic of conversation was, or it just wanted to answer your question and it didn't know it wasn't supposed to make it up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
some of those kind of quirks of it are really important for all staff to know. So there's probably an e-learning module in there that should be pushed out pronto.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. So I guess possibly the key message here is use this opportunity to upskill, make use of some of these free resources that are publicly available now. You got me thinking, like, I knew that Azure was the ability to ring fence your IP to ensure that it doesn't make its way into the public realm. I'm definitely going to be looking into that, see what that might mean for our organisation. I definitely recommend you guys do the same. In terms of resources or other things that people should be thinking about, is there anything else that we haven't touched on that you feel is worth?
Probably going to check out the AI pages that Microsoft has put out there, because we've put out a bunch of information. There's some technical information there, but then there's also like customer stories, and also things like, you know, what AI might mean in the future in terms of the future of work. There's a really good white paper called the Work Trend Index that we've just released as well.
Yeah.
So there is a bunch of stuff publicly available that you can have a read of as well.
I mean, for me, I'm doing a bit of a jump for joy, because it feels like it's the kind of the next renaissance in a way, because it feels like art, critical thinking, expression is just going to be enhanced significantly through this tech, right? But on the same side, those who their happy place is, you know, data analytics. What an amazing place to be, you know, time to be around as well, because now we'll be doing all this like trend analysis and heat mapping, which only a few years ago, this brings back a memory actually, I spoke to a company who were on the cusp of being able to do some really quite amazing heat mapping type products, but it was specifically for large organizations because it required a really significant budget to achieve. All of a sudden, it's now available, and it's like, wow, we're all going to have this ability to do this now. It's very exciting, exciting times.
Absolutely.
Yay. So I guess the bottom line here, the chief takeaway is that, change is always a bit scary, but ultimately this is an amazing opportunity, and we really need to grasp it. So, make the most of it. Cool. Thank you so much.
No worries. Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to chat to you about this. It is really exciting, and we'll see what November brings, I guess.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, bring it on. So thank you for your time once again, like, and your transparency as always. It's just invaluable. So thank you.
You're welcome.